The story of the 1979 Roosevelt dime is not just the story of a small 10-cent coin. It is a window into American history, culture, politics, and economics. At the end of the turbulent 1970s and the beginning of a new decade, the dime itself might seem ordinary to many people today, something that has passed through countless hands at grocery stores, gas stations, and vending machines. But when we take a closer look at the 1979 dime, we uncover a rich history that connects us to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to the struggles of World War II, to the advances in minting technology, and to the dramatic changes in the American economy during the late 20th century. To understand the significance of the 1979 dime, we first have to understand why Franklin Roosevelt appeared on the dime in the first place. Roosevelt, who led the nation through the Great Depression and World War II, was a symbol of resilience and leadership. He had also been stricken with polio, and his image became linked with the March of Dimes campaign that sought to raise money to fight infantile paralysis. So when Roosevelt died in 1945, the United States Mint decided to honor him on the dime, which had become associated with the cause that he supported. This, designed by John R. Sinek, featured Roosevelt facing left with the inscriptions, "Liberty in God, we trust," the date, and the designer's initials. JS. This design replaced the winged Liberty head dime, commonly known as the Mercury dime, and it has been in use ever since. By 1979, the Roosevelt dime had already been circulating for over 3 decades. But the coins of this year are fascinating for several reasons. First, we have to consider the broader economic backdrop. The 1970s were a decade marked by inflation, oil crises, and debates about the strength of the U.S. dollar. Americans were increasingly concerned with the cost of living, and the dime itself was a symbol of the shrinking purchasing power of money. Something that could buy more in the 1950s and 1960s was worth far less by 1979, yet the dime still carried the face of Roosevelt, a reminder of leadership and stability in uncertain times. The mint itself was also in a period of transition. During the 1970s, new technologies in coin production were being implemented, and errors, varieties, and changes in mint marks became points of interest for collectors. For the 1979 dime, production took place at several facilities, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each of these mints played a role in striking millions of dimes, but it is the San Francisco mint coins that have drawn the most collector attention, because 1979 was an important year for proof coinage. The 1979 S-proof. Roosevelt dimes are especially notable. Because of the mint mark varieties, collectors know these as Type 1 and Type 2S mint marks. In 1979, the San Francisco Mint changed the style of the S mint mark, leading to 2 distinct versions. The Type 1 mint mark looked more like a blob, or was less defined, while the Type 2 mint mark was clearer with sharper serifs. This small change created a divide in the market, and today the Type 2 versions command premiums among collectors, especially in higher grades. This represents one of the many subtle details that makes the 1979 dime more than just pocket change. It is a case study in how even the tiniest alterations in minting can create long-term value. Looking at the composition of the coin, the 1979 dime, like all Roosevelt dimes, struck since 1965, was made of a copper nickel-clad composition with an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. The removal of silver from the dime had taken place in 1965, when rising silver prices forced the government to switch to base metals. This change reflected broader economic forces, and by 1979, it was well established that the dime was no longer a precious metal coin, but a circulation coin designed for durability and efficiency. Still, collectors often marvel at high-grade examples, especially those with strong strikes and minimal wear, because finding perfectly preserved copper nickel-clad coins from circulation is no easy task. In terms of mintage numbers, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of dimes in 1979 with no mint mark. The Denver Mint also struck a huge number with the D Mint mark, while San Francisco produced proof coins. The sheer quantity means that circulated 1979 dimes are common, but what sets them apart are condition, rarity, and variety. When a collector finds a coin graded MS-67 or higher, it becomes a prized piece, because clad coins often suffer from weak strikes, poor luster and contact marks in circulation, similarly proof coins with deep cameo contrast, and flawless surfaces can carry strong premiums. But the 1979 dime story does not end with mintage numbers. It also connects with the numismatic culture of the era during the late 1970s and early 1980s. Coin collecting in America was gaining popularity, fueled by silver prices, bullion markets, and a growing awareness of coin varieties. Collectors began to look more carefully at details like mint marks, die varieties, and proof types. The 1979 S Type 1 and Type 2 dimes became part of this growing movement of error and variety hunting that still defines the hobby today. It was no longer just about having one example of each date and mint mark. It was about appreciating the subtle differences that told the story of how coins were made. Furthermore, the 1979 dime holds significance because it sits on the edge of the transition between two eras of American coinage. On one hand, it belongs to the traditional Roosevelt dime series that stretches back to 1946. On the other hand, it anticipates the technological improvements and heightened collector awareness of the 1980s and beyond. In this way, the coin is both a product of its time and a bridge to the future of numismatics. When we hold a 1979 dime today, we hold a piece of history that represents the economic struggles of its time, the enduring legacy of Franklin Roosevelt, the technological changes in minting, and the collector culture that continues to thrive. The coin might seem small and ordinary, but every scratch, every shine, every mint mark tells a part of the American story. So whether you are a seasoned numismatist or someone who has just pulled a 1979 dime from pocket change, this coin invites you to look deeper into the history of America's coinage, to appreciate not only its face value but the historical journey it represents from the Great Depression to the inflationary 1970s, from the fight against polio to the fight for financial stability, and from the ordinary minting press to the extraordinary passion of collectors.